quilting friends, it's Carolina Moore from alwaysexpectmore.com, and we are here. We made it. We're at week 6 of the Gallery Wall Quilt Along, and I'm so excited because today we get to put it all together. So I have my bag, which is my week 6 bag, because at the beginning we put all of our pieces into the different bags, and my bag actually contains my binding, my backing, and the border strips. So I'm not gonna tuck into this quite yet because I have a couple seams to put together before I get to tackle those border strips. Also, I would recommend that you do this with a big ironing board rather than a small ironing pad. I'm gonna go ahead and do this with the small ironing pad so I don't have to keep getting up, because this sewing room is not designed for doing full video plus getting access to my large ironing board at the same time. But that's okay. We'll make do, and when I'm done, I'll take it all over to the big ironing board and give it a good press there. So in the meantime, I'm just going to use my little mini, and I'm gonna get her heated up. There we go. Get her tucked over here. And the center of our quilt top is just going to take a couple seams. I have Unit B and Unit A. And I need to make sure that I get these the right way. So there should be a nice big border strip between the top of Unit B and the bottom of Unit A. Perfect. And I'm going to stitch these together. 7 seams, y'all. 7 seams till we have this quilt put together. Let's start on the first one. Boom. Down to 6 seams. Because there is another seam that's going to go across this, I do need to press this. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up and give it a quick press here on my pressing pad. I just always have to take a look at it and see what I think. Nice. Okay, so that's A and B together, and now I'm going to add C. And C is the 3 across the top with the 2 large, and the large go on top. So I'm just going to match up these seams. The quilt is getting bigger. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this seam, and then we'll just be a handful of seams away. Five seams. 5 seams, y'all. It's getting exciting. So we stitched Unit A to Unit B, and then we pressed, and now we're pressing the join of Unit C to Unit AB, and then just 1 more seam, and our center is done, and we're just down to borders. You know what we do after we get the borders on, right? Right? I won't spoil it for you. But once we get those borders on, I'll tell you what's after the borders. I'll let you go ahead and guess. What's your guess? Okay. So this mini iron is actually working like a champ to get these seams pressed. I'm really happy with how my little Elisa is doing. Okay, so, okay, I have Unit D to put on the bottom, and I want to make sure that I'm putting it on the correct way. Yep, that's the top. Yes. There we go. And on this seam, there are going to be some points that I want to meet up because I have pieces of frame coming together with other pieces of frame, whereas the other, it was just an edge border coming together with the unit as a whole. And so if things weren't perfectly lined up, No one would know. What if your picture frames on the wall aren't hanging perfectly straight? What if you live in an earthquake area where we get some earthquakes and maybe our picture frames are a little shook up? Totally fine. Okay. So four seams, just four seams left. Okay. Ah, it's looking so good. So I did head over to my big ironing board to press this. I wanted to give it a really good press before I start adding on the borders. In my bag, I have my border pieces. I'm gonna pull that out. If you follow the cutting instructions, you'll have 4 border pieces, 2 longer ones and 2 shorter ones. There we go. Now the 2 shorter ones are for the top and bottom, so I'm going to set those aside, and the 2 longer ones are for my sides. Now, I don't use a lot of pins, but when I add borders, I pin. It's not my favorite thing to do is pinning, but with borders, it's 100% worth it. This is such a lot of fabric, and it is so easy for it to get stretched or the quilt to get stretched and for you to get ruffles. With this much fabric, you could accidentally stretch as much as a ½ inch or an inch when putting on your borders. So to avoid that, I put in pins, which kind of act like guards along the way to remind me where I'm at and what I'm doing. So let me find, okay, here's a side. And what I'm going to do is take my border, I'm going to fold it in half. Now this border has a seam in it, so even though it's denim, which this denim doesn't really have a right side, because I put a seam in there, it does have a right side. So on the fold, I'm going to put a pin, and that's going to let me know where my halfway point is. And then I've got my seam, so I know that that's my wrong side. And then right sides together. I'm going to pin it to the corner here. And then go down to the end. And pin it to the corner on the other end. So you could do this by measuring and measure where your midway points are, but it's just as easy to fold it in half. In fact, I find it easier. So that's the way I choose to do it. Make sure that there's no twists in your border, and then fold your quilt in half this way. Now your midpoint on your quilt should be right at about that midpoint on your pin. Give it a little bit of wiggle. Let's smooth it out a bit. And then you can take that pin you already have and just put it through all the layers. Now I like to lay it flat at this point and then just add another pin at what's roughly the quarter point. It doesn't need to be exactly the quarter, but just because we do have a long way between the start and the midpoint, and I just want to give myself another check so I'm not too far off and I'm not accidentally stretching my fabrics. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins in here, and that's all the pins I'm going to need. I've got my other border, but I'll wait to stitch this one on because if I have pins on both sides, chances are with me, I'll stab myself with one of those pins. So I'll put this border on first, and then I'll repeat the process of pinning to put the border on the other side, and then I'm going to press everything out towards the borders before adding the top and bottom. This side stitched on, I'm going to pin the other side. So I snuck on over to the big ironing board and got my borders pressed nicely. So now I just have my top and bottom borders and I'm all done. I'm going to do this the exact same way that I did the last one. I'm going to put a pin in the halfway point. And then I'm just going to pin the edges, pin the middle. This is shorter, so it'll be up to you if you want to do just 3 pins, 1 at each quarter and the 1 in the middle, or if you want to do all 5 pins and add 2 extras like we did with the last one. I think I'll probably just do 3 on this. I've had pretty good seam allowances and everything seems like it's grooving along pretty nicely. And, you know, I just want to be done. However, there is always that risk of you just want to be done, and you don't do your steps every single one, and so you just rush through it, and as a result you end up taking longer because you have to pick stuff out. So there's always that risk, but I'm feeling lucky and I'm gonna risk it. I want to make sure there's not a twist in my border. I was playing bobbin chicken and I lost. Look at that. So close to the end and I ran out of bobbin. I'm gonna fill up another bobbin and then get this quilt done. If you ever run out of bobbin thread, it's not a big deal. Go back and stitch an inch over the stitching that you've already stitched to be able to give yourself a double layer in that area, and that way when one set of stitching ends, the other one starts before that, and that gives you a nice secure join. You don't have to worry about going back and forth and getting lots of extra thread bulk. So I've given myself about an inch. And then I stitch those last couple stitches. Remember, always needle up, then presser foot up before you pull on your thread, and that makes it smooth and make sure that your needle doesn't get unthreaded. I'm going to pin on my other side. Remember our countdown? 1 seam left to go. That was the last seam. Oh my goodness, friends, we did it. We finished the gallery wall quilt, and I have to say, it looks amazing. I'm so excited about this. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I hope your gallery wall quilt looks at least as fabulous as this one does. I'm sure it does, possibly even better. And that leads us to, what do you do after you've stitched the last seam on your quilt top? You have someone hold it up. You take a picture of it and you post it on Instagram, and make sure you tag me. I'm Craftmore on Instagram. That's CRAFTMOORE. Find me over there, tag me, use the hashtag Gallery Wall Quilt, and post a photo of your quilt. I hope you've been doing it all along throughout the process and sharing photos, but if not, now's the time. We want to see your finished gallery wall quilt. So excited that you joined me on this journey. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up to help other people find it, and subscribe to this channel. I have so much more quilty goodness coming your way, and I can't wait to share it all with you. Again, thanks for going on this journey with me. It's been so much fun having you here. I really love quilting with friends, and sometimes just quilting here with a little snoring puppy can get a little lonely, so I really love that you've been here on this journey with me. Thanks, friend, for being here. I will see you next time. In the meantime, go ahead and find me over on Instagram and we can chat some more there. Bye. See you soon. I also want to give a huge shout out to my friends at Art Gallery Fabrics for supporting me in this journey. All of these fabrics for both the by land version that we've been doing here as well as the by sea version of the Gallery Wall quilt are all Art Gallery fabrics. They've been fabulous throughout this process, and I love, love, love working with their fabrics. Remember, there's a full supply list for the fabrics that you need to do either of these colorways of your own Gallery Wall quilt.